Story 1. The knocking in the hallway. Have you ever been home alone and felt like your house suddenly changed? That's what happened to me last winter. I was 19, living with my parents, and they'd gone away for the weekend. It was late Friday night, around midnight, and I was lying on the couch watching some random Netflix show when I heard 3 slow knocks. They weren't on the front door, they were coming from the hallway that led to my bedroom. I muted the TV and sat there, listening. At first I thought maybe it was the house settling, but then I heard it again. 3 knocks. This time closer. The thing is, there's no door in that hallway, just the 3 bedrooms and the bathroom. I stood up, walked a few steps toward the hall, and froze. I swear I saw movement, like someone stepping back into the shadows of my room. Hello? My voice cracked. No answer. I told myself I was being paranoid. I flicked on the hallway light, nothing. My bedroom door was half open. I went in, checked the closet, looked under the bed, empty. I tried to shake it off and went back to the couch. 20 minutes later, just as I was starting to relax, I heard it again. This time the knocks were right behind me. I spun around, and there was nothing there, just the hallway stretching into darkness. But then, from the bathroom, I heard the sound of the shower curtain being pulled. Slow. I grabbed my phone, called my neighbor, and told him to come over. I didn't move until I saw his headlights outside. The weirdest part? In the bathroom, the shower curtain was drawn completely shut, and I never close it. When my sister asked me to babysit her 1-year-old while she went on a date, I didn't think twice. She lived just a couple of streets over, so I walked there after dinner. By 9 p.m., the baby was asleep in the crib upstairs. I settled on the couch, scrolling through my phone, with the baby monitor on the coffee table. About an hour later, I heard static coming from the monitor. I leaned closer and I heard a voice. It wasn't the baby. It was a man's voice, whispering something I couldn't quite make out. My heart started racing. I turned up the volume just enough to hear it. "Don't go upstairs." I froze. I tried to tell myself it was interference, maybe picking up a neighbor's radio or something, but then I heard it again, louder this time. "He's awake." I grabbed my sister's landline and called her cell. She didn't answer. I decided to go check the baby myself, monitor still in hand. The second I stepped into the hallway, the monitor blared with sharp static, then silence. I pushed the bedroom door open. The baby was still asleep, but the window, which had been locked earlier, was wide open. Cold air was blowing in. I shut and locked it immediately, grabbed the baby, and went back downstairs. I didn't put him back in the crib until my sister came home. When I told her what happened, she said the same thing had occurred once before, but the whisper had told her, "Don't look out the window." Two years ago, I was living in a rented house while in college. It had this creepy, unfinished basement that I almost never went into. One night in October, I was home alone. My roommate was away for the weekend. Around 11 p.m., I heard a loud thud from downstairs. I figured something had fallen in the kitchen, but when I checked, everything was fine. That's when I realized the sound had come from beneath me. The basement. I grabbed a flashlight and slowly opened the basement door. It was pitch black. The stairs creaked under my feet as I went down, shining the light around. Halfway down, I froze. There was a man standing at the bottom of the stairs. He wasn't moving, just standing there, head tilted slightly to the side, staring up at me. "What are you doing there?" I nearly dropped the flashlight. My voice cracked as I asked what he was doing there. "You weren't supposed to hear me." I bolted back upstairs, slammed the basement door, and locked it. Then I called 911. When police arrived, they found muddy footprints leading from a small broken basement window to a corner where the man had apparently been hiding. But here's what still keeps me up at night. The officer told me the man had been living down there for at least a week. Story 3. The footsteps in the attic. Have you ever been home alone and heard something you just couldn't explain? The kind of sound that makes you stop breathing because you know it shouldn't be there. This happened about a year ago, in my small 2-bedroom rental house. I was home alone for the weekend while my roommate visited her family. Friday night. I just got out of the shower, wrapped in a towel, scrolling on my phone in bed. That's when I heard it thump, thump, thump. The sound came from directly above me. My bedroom was under the attic. The noises were heavy, slow footsteps. I froze. We didn't store anything up there. It wasn't like a raccoon or squirrel could sound that heavy. My phone lit up with a text from my roommate. Made it home safe? I didn't answer. I just stared at the ceiling. Another sound, a long dragging noise, like something being pulled across the attic floor. My heart was racing so hard I could hear it in my ears. I slowly got dressed, trying not to make any sound. The attic entrance was in the hallway outside my room. Just a square panel in the ceiling with a pull-down ladder. I stared at it, and I swear, I saw the slightest movement in the panel, like someone nudged it from the inside. I grabbed my keys and bolted out of the house without shoes. I called the police from my car, telling them someone was in my attic. 2 officers arrived and went inside while I waited outside shaking. When they came back out, they looked disturbed. They didn't find anyone, but they found a sleeping bag, food wrappers, and an empty bottle of water in the attic corner. One officer said quietly, "Whoever was up there, they were living there for a while. I moved out within the month."
Story 4. The Man in the Window. Early winter, the sun set before 6 p.m. I was 16, home alone for the first time in a while. My parents had gone out for dinner. They'd be back by 9. Around 7, I was curled up on the couch watching TV. The blinds were open just enough to see the faint reflection of my living room lights in the glass. At some point, I saw something strange in that reflection. A face. Pale, expressionless, pressed against the glass outside. I froze in shock, eyes flicking toward the window. By the time I turned my head fully, there was nothing there. My heart was pounding. I tried convincing myself it was just my brain playing tricks. 10 minutes later, I went into the kitchen to grab water. Movement in the backyard through the sliding glass door. A tall man stood at the far end, half in the shadows, looking at the house. I ducked and crawled away, grabbing my phone to call my dad. He told me to lock all the doors and stay on the line. I could hear his voice shaking, even though he tried to sound calm. I locked everything and sat in my room with the lights off. I thought I heard faint tapping on the glass again, but I refused to look. When my parents pulled into the driveway, my dad ran straight to the backyard. The man was gone. There were fresh footprints in the frost, leading right up to my bedroom window. Story 5. The Hallway Breathing. My first apartment, about 5 years ago. Small 1-bedroom on the 2nd floor of an old building. One night I was alone, lying in bed, scrolling on my phone. My bedroom door was cracked open. From my bed I could see down the short hallway to the living room. The place was silent, until I heard breathing. At first I thought it was the neighbors through the thin walls, but it was slow, steady, unmistakably coming from the hallway, like someone was standing just out of sight, taking deep breaths. I sat up, staring at the dark hallway. The breathing didn't stop. My mouth went dry. I whispered, "Hello?" It stopped immediately. That silence was worse than the sound itself. I grabbed the baseball bat I kept by my bed. I walked toward the hallway light switch, hands shaking. When I finally flipped it on, the hallway was empty. I checked every room, every closet, under the bed, even the balcony. Nothing. When I went back into my bedroom, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The door to my closet was slightly open. I never leave it like that. I slammed it shut and piled stuff in front of it. That night, I slept with the lights on. Story 6. The Voice in the Basement. My house growing up had an unfinished basement. It was cold, damp, and creepy. I avoided going down there unless I had to do laundry. One evening when I was home alone, I heard something from the basement. A voice. It was faint, but it sounded like a man saying something over and over in a calm, almost conversational tone. I froze at the top of the stairs trying to make out the words. It sounded like, "Come down here. Come down here." Every hair on my body stood up. I slammed the basement door shut and locked it, backing away slowly. My first thought was to call my parents, but then the voice got louder. It wasn't yelling, just closer. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen and ran upstairs to my bedroom, locking that door too. I called my neighbor, a retired cop, and begged him to come over. When he arrived, we went down into the basement together. It was empty. No signs of forced entry, no hiding spots big enough for a person. But there was something odd. An old disconnected landline phone lying on the floor. It was off the hook, and I swear I could still faintly hear the sound of someone breathing through it.
Story 2. The Voice in the Baby Monitor.